One of the new features in FM Interact version 8.2 are some of the alternative workspace or zone features. What you're currently looking at on the screen is a graphic view where we've applied a few different zones. What this allows us to do is not only incorporate things like occupancy zones, which departments sit where, but also things along the lines of HVAC zones. We're currently looking at one based upon occupancy. What this tool allows us to do is, using the Silverlight viewer, come in and select some of those items, those spaces, right click, and in our case we've actually applied an occupancy zone with some different options. So if I go ahead and let's say we're going to add this to the marketing zone, those spaces have now been added to that marketing zone in both the count and the area. So each time we come in and specify what we want to go ahead and add, it's updating that graphic view in both the counts, the areas, the colors, and hatch patterns. How that information gets established is through some of the data views. A data view can go ahead and first dictate what types of zones do we want to track. Again, we're working with perhaps occupancy zones, but you can see we might include things like mail stops or HVAC zones. As part of those workspace zones, we need to define what we're working with. If we come in here and let's say we're going to add a brand new one, you'll notice that we've got the option to say what type of zone is it, and maybe mine's going to be accounts payable, whatever it may be. All I'm going to do is give a color for this particular item and perhaps maybe even a target ratio. So let's say 1.5. That means I want to have 1.5 people per space. I'm going to go ahead and save that. What I've just done is created that workspace zone. The next part of this is to determine how we want to utilize that scope. So where does that come into play? You'll notice we created one called accounts payable, and it wants to know, where am I using this? In our case, we're going to confine this to just one site, one building, and perhaps one floor. So I can go ahead and submit that. Now, what we've just done is we created a new zone that fits that particular location. That allows us to go back to the graphic, maybe pull up that particular graphic view, and from that graphic view we can see all of the current available items. So again, we're working with our occupancy zone. Make this a little bit bigger so that we can see exactly what we're working with. I've got the ability now to come in and say, this bank of spaces is actually going to be applied to that new occupancy zone that we just created called accounts payable. And again, now you'll see those in the list. Obviously, you can create reports upon this information, but the idea is to be able to utilize all of your existing spaces and apply them to zones as you might need.